The alley behind Dawson's bookstore was surprisingly quiet, a spot that seemed forgotten by time. The air carried a musty mix of old paper and mildew, chilled by the crispness of autumn. A flickering street lamp above created shifting shadows on the cracked brick walls. Then I heard it, a faint, urgent sound that grabbed my attention. My heart raced as I followed the noise and found 4 tiny kittens huddled together, their little bodies trembling and their eyes still closed. They were alone and clearly in distress. A wave of panic washed over me. Had I gotten here too late? Seeing those fragile lives struggling in the cold stirred something deep within me. Their fur was damp and matted, barely moving except for the gentle rise and fall of their bellies. This wasn't where they belonged. Left alone, without a mother or warmth, their chance of survival was slim. I knelt down, trying to catch my breath in the chilly air. What should I do? My hands trembled as I reached out, fearful that I might hurt them with a careless touch. They felt so light in my hands, almost like a handful of leaves. One by one, I gently tucked them into my jacket, feeling their tiny claws grip the fabric as they squirmed weakly. Before I had time to think, I found myself dialing Mia's number. When she answered, I quickly said, "I found kittens. Newborns. No mother." There was a brief silence before her voice turned serious. "Nathan, they need warmth. You must act quickly." Without hesitating, I took off running. I raced through the alley, across the slick pavement, and past the bookstore where Mrs. Dawson was sweeping up. She looked at me in surprise, but I didn't stop to explain. Once I got to my apartment, I grabbed towels, a heating pad, and anything else that might help. The kittens were still bundled together, hardly moving. Their breaths were weak, rising and falling like candle flames flickering in the wind. Would they survive the night? The dim light of the apartment filled the space as I worked to create a safe place for them. I gathered a cardboard box and lined it with thick towels, making a cozy nest. The kittens curled up together, their tiny paws twitching as they settled, their ears still too small to perk up properly. Their fur felt cool and damp from the alley, carrying a faint smell of mildew and earth, so unlike the warmth I wanted to provide. I slid the heating pad under the towels, making sure it wasn't too hot, and gently nudged the small kittens toward the warmth. They hardly responded. One shifted a bit, while another let out a soft, breathless meow. It was tough to tell if they were fading away or simply trying their best to hold on. Mia arrived shortly after, bringing an air of calm efficiency. Although her presence was meant to reassure us, it somehow made the situation feel more serious. She bypassed small talk and knelt by the box, carefully checking each kitten. She looked for signs of dehydration, gently pressing on their bellies to see if they had eaten since being left behind. Her expression mirrored my own worries. They were in real danger, and the hours ahead could be critical. I watched intently as she retrieved a small syringe filled with kitten formula, tilting the first kitten's head just enough to coax a drop onto its lips. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, almost undetectably, I saw the tiniest flicker of a tongue. It was a small movement, but it ignited a glimmer of hope. As the night stretched on, the room buzzed with quiet voices and careful movements, all bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp. We worked diligently, acutely aware of the fragile nature of the kittens. They were so tiny, with their soft fur barely covering their delicate bones, and their ribs emerging clearly with each shallow breath. One by one, we fed them, struggling to encourage small drops of formula into their mouths, eager for them to latch. Some showed signs of life, if only weakly, but then there was Ember. She was the smallest of the bunch, hardly more than a whisper against the towel. Her movements were sluggish, even as Mia attempted to gently rouse her. The formula remained untouched on her lips, and when Mia massaged her throat to encourage a swallow, there was no reaction, no flicker of instinct. A wave of dread settled in my chest as I observed her breathing, each rise and fall growing more subdued. Mia spoke with a steady tone, but I could feel the tension beneath her calm words. "She's hypothermic. She doesn't have the energy to eat." Without hesitation, she cradled Ember carefully and nestled her against her collarbone, wrapping a thick blanket around them both. The warmth of our bodies close together felt like our last chance to save her. As I shifted my focus, the painful truth about our situation became clear. Not every kitten would make it. Fatigue hung heavily on me, but the thought of sleep seemed indulgent and out of reach. The air in the apartment was thick with the smell of warm milk and the gentle hum of the heater. Ember was snug under Mia's sweater, her tiny body curled up against the warmth. I could barely feel her heartbeat, just a soft flutter beneath her delicate ribs. I found myself counting her breaths, anxiously watching for any sign that she might be slipping away. Each rise and fall of her chest felt precarious. On the couch, Elliot sat with his arms crossed. Usually confident, he now looked uncertain. He had joined us about an hour ago, initially hesitant, but as the reality of our situation settled in, his skepticism faded. Though he wasn't known for connecting with animals like Mia and I did, even he seemed affected by how close these kittens were to the edge. "What if she doesn't pull through?" he asked cautiously, as if saying it too loudly might make it true. Mia took a moment, her fingers moving gently over Ember's back. "Then we do what we can," she replied softly but firmly, "and we won't stop until there's nothing more we can do." Her words lingered in the air, a clear promise. We weren't just waiting, we were fighting for them. As the night slipped into morning, soft light filtered through the blinds, and the city outside began to wake. Inside, time felt suspended, stretching each moment into something heavy and fragile. The kittens huddled together, their small bodies cocooned in the warmth of the heating pad. While they still seemed impossibly tiny, there was a small victory. 3 of them had eaten. But Ember lay unnaturally still, her breath a faint whisper against Mia's collarbone. Then my phone buzzed sharply on the kitchen counter, breaking the delicate silence. I glanced at the caller ID before answering, its weight feeling urgent against my ear. Dawson's voice came through clearly, though her usual warmth was replaced with tension. "Nathan, I think the mother cat came back." Her words struck me hard, like a stone sinking in my chest. I turned away from the others, gripping the phone tighter. "You saw her?" There was a brief moment of silence before she answered. "Early this morning. She was looking for them, Nathan." For a second, it felt like everything shifted. I had reassured myself that the kittens were abandoned, that their mother had left them behind. But if she had returned and was searching for them, had I done the right thing by taking them in? Had I unknowingly taken them from their best chance at survival? Dawson's words hung in the air, heavy and unsettling, wrapping around my thoughts and filling me with uncertainty. The phone felt weighty in my grip, her voice replaying in my mind. I thought I was saving those kittens, believing they came to me because they had lost all hope. But if the mother was searching for them, maybe I had made a mistake after all. I had taken them from the only comfort they knew, leaving them alone in a cardboard box, fragile and uncertain about their future. Mia picked up on my change in mood before I even spoke. Her tired eyes zeroed in on my face. "What's wrong?" Words eluded me, as if they were stuck. The mother cat came back. A thick silence filled the room, charged with unasked questions. Elliot leaned forward, his hands clasped together, concern evident on his face. "So we have to take them back, right? If she's looking for them, she's their best chance." Mia cradled Ember against her, letting out a sigh that signaled a difficult conversation was on the horizon. Or maybe she left them on purpose. Perhaps they were too weak for her, or she knew something we don't. We can't be sure why she was gone. That uncertainty loomed over us, dark and heavy. None of us knew which choice was the right one. Every decision felt like wandering in the dark, hoping we weren't making things worse. The dilemma weighed on me, a steady pressure in my chest as I paced the apartment, caught between logic and instinct. The kittens slept peacefully in their nest, their small bodies gently rising and falling with each breath. They were blissfully unaware of the tough choice that lay ahead. Outside, the city buzzed to life, the distant sounds of traffic and the chatter of early risers drifting through the window. Yet, in this cozy room, time felt slow, thick with uncertainty. Mia carefully adjusted the blanket around Ember, her fingers softly brushing against the delicate kitten. Mia's face showed a mix of concern and determination. "We can't just assume she'll take them back," she said, her voice steady but hinting at worry. "If she didn't want them before, what's to say she'll welcome them now?" Elliot ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident as he exhaled sharply. "But what if she wasn't rejecting them? What if she was just scared?" Maybe she's out there looking for them right now. His thoughts echoed around the room, creating a heavy atmosphere filled with uncertainty. I shifted my focus to the kittens, particularly Ember. While her breathing had improved slightly, she still looked weak, caught between life and something grim. If we returned them and their mother turned them away again, Ember might not make it. On the other hand, keeping them could mean denying them a chance if their mother truly was searching for them. Finding the right decision felt overwhelming. The weight of our uncertainty settled in the apartment, filling the space with unspoken tension, evident in our glances and cautious breaths. Meanwhile, the kittens remained blissfully unaware, snuggled together, soaking in the warmth from the heated towel. Their fur, still damp from a night filled with fear, began to fluff up, suggesting they were stabilizing, except for Ember. Her body lay limp, her shallow breaths a reminder of how fragile she was, relying on Mia's gentle warmth for any hope of recovery. I crouched beside the box, wrestling with what to do next. If their mother was searching for them, wouldn't it be right to return them? The thought of putting them back into the cold, especially watching Ember struggle for each breath, made my stomach twist. I lightly touched her fragile body, feeling the faint rhythm of her heartbeat beneath my fingers. In that moment, I realized something. Letting her go wasn't an option for me. Mia sensed my hesitation and softened her tone. "You're getting attached." I hesitated, knowing she was right. I could feel it in my chest, the tightening every time I spotted Ember's shaky breaths, the way I found myself studying the patterns in their soft fur, or how they made tiny sounds as they shifted. I started this as a rescuer, but along the way, something changed. They had become more than just stray kittens. They now held a special place in my heart. Elliot sighed deeply, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, what's the decision?" His question lingered, creating a pause in the room. For the first time, I realized I was unsure about letting them go. The choice felt weighty, as if with each moment it pressed down harder. The air around us thickened, and every breath felt intentional, as if one sudden movement could break the fragile calm we had established over the past few hours. The kittens shifted slightly in their sleep, innocent and unaware of the uncertainty swirling around. Ember lay peacefully against Mia's collarbone, warm from her touch, her tiny life hanging by a thread, one I feared might snap at any moment. Elliot perched on the edge of the couch, his fingers intertwined. His gaze moved between us. "I can see how attached you are, and that's perfectly normal. But if their mother is out there, shouldn't she be allowed to take them back?" He spoke softly but firmly, encouraging us to think beyond our immediate feelings. Mia, taking a breath, rubbed Ember's back in gentle circles. "But what if she doesn't? If we return them and she turns them away again, they won't survive the night, especially not Ember." Her words didn't aim to wound, yet they landed heavily, weighty and hard to dismiss. I paused, gathering my thoughts as I looked between them. The reality was, I felt lost. Keeping them felt selfish, like playing a risky game with lives that seemed far too delicate. Yet sending them back into uncertainty and hoping their mother, who had already left them once, would change felt like a gamble we might not win. This decision was about more than just the kittens. It weighed on whether I was prepared to leave their future to chance or take control. The atmosphere around us felt restricted, our choices pressing in, shutting us off from the world beyond. The sounds of traffic drifted in from outside, but I focused on the steady beat of my own heart. The kittens nestled together, oblivious to the tense discussion nearby, while Ember lay a little apart, her small body tucked against Mia, breathing softly. It was as if she stood on the edge of a significant decision, her breaths uncertain, sensing that something important was at stake. Elliot shifted in his seat, a note of frustration in his voice. "It seems like you're not really listening. Letting emotions take over isn't helping anyone here." He leaned forward, his hands gripping his knees, clearly tense. "Their mother is out there. If we don't return the kittens soon, we might just make things worse." Mia shook her head, her jaw set firmly. "But what if she's not coming back? What if she's already made her choice to leave them? A mother cat doesn't just abandon her babies easily. There has to be a reason." Her tone softened slightly, yet it stayed strong. "If we take them back now, we risk losing them all. Ember can't handle another night. You know that. I ran my fingers through my hair, pacing the room. Deep down, I realized I already had an answer in my mind, even if I hadn't voiced it yet. The thought of returning those kittens to the cold alley and just walking away felt unbearable. However, if I decided to keep them, intervening in nature's course, was that truly the right choice or just a hesitation to let go? The silence that settled between us felt heavier than the argument itself, filled with an uncertainty that made searching for the right words difficult. The weight of our decision felt almost tangible, pressing down on me. The kittens were huddled together, safe for now, but incredibly fragile. Just imagining returning them to that harsh alley made my stomach twist. Yet the idea of keeping them, taking on the responsibility for their lives without knowing if I could manage it, felt equally overwhelming. Elliot exhaled sharply, rubbing his face with his hand. We can't keep circling around like this. If we decide to take them back, it has to be soon, before it's too late. His voice was tight, reflecting both frustration and a touch of uncertainty. He wanted to believe that returning them was the right path, but doubts were lingering. Mia adjusted Ember against her chest, lightly tracing the kitten's delicate form. You already know what you want, she said softly, glancing at me as if reading my thoughts. You just haven't said it out loud yet. I swallowed hard, feeling the dryness in my throat. She was right. I did have an answer. From the moment I picked them up off the pavement and felt their tiny hearts beating against my palms, it was clear to me. They were no longer just abandoned kittens. They were part of my life now. As I looked at Elliot, Mia, and the fragile little lives in our care, I finally found the strength to say what had been on my mind. We're keeping them. Once I made that decision, I felt a shift in the room. It was as if my words had locked into place, like the final piece of a puzzle. There was still some tension, but things had changed. Elliot let out a slow breath and shook his head slightly, but he didn't argue. Mia nodded, as if she had known all along that I couldn't let them go. The kittens seemed blissfully unaware of the importance of our decision. They stirred in their cozy nest, their tiny paws moving softly and small sounds escaping their mouths. Ember, nestled against Mia, took a steady breath, warmer than she'd been the night before. It wasn't victory just yet, but it felt like a hopeful sign that she was still here and still fighting. Without needing to say more, I jumped into action. I adjusted the heating pad under the towels to make sure they were warm enough. I grabbed the small bottles of formula and prepared for the hours ahead. This was it. No more second-guessing whether we had taken them from their mother or if fate had brought them to us. I looked at Mia and then at Elliot. We're going to need a lot of supplies. Elliot let out a soft chuckle and shook his head. I can't believe you're really doing this. There was no anger in his tone, just a hint of admiration shining through. Mia smiled as she carefully adjusted Ember in her hands. Welcome to rescue, Nathan. Just like that, I understood. I wasn't just a passerby who found some kittens. I had become their protector. The next few days blended together in a constant cycle of feedings and sleepless nights. I found joy in watching the kittens grow stronger. Their once fragile bodies began to fill out, and their clumsy movements turned more focused. It was tough. During those early moments, each feeding required a delicate mix of patience and worry. Every hour felt like a quiet hope, praying Ember would pull through and that the others would thrive too. Then things began to change. Their cries shifted from weak, desperate sounds to lively demands for food and warmth. Their shaky legs found their strength, discovering a newfound energy. Leo was the first to open his eyes, revealing bright blue eyes that sparkled with innocent curiosity. It was a sight that really tugged at my heart. Marigold followed soon after, her little ears standing up at the sound of my voice. Even Soot, who had been shy and barely moved before, began to crawl over, looking for comfort from his siblings. Then I spotted Ember, the smallest and weakest of the group, the one we almost lost. Watching her snuggled up with her siblings, her tiny chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm, I felt a surge of hope. She was still here, still fighting. When I started this journey, I was just a stranger who stumbled upon a litter of helpless kittens. Now they felt like family to me. As I gently stroked Ember's soft fur and felt her warmth, I realized something important. While I saved them, they had saved me too. Rescue goes beyond mere survival. It's about embracing uncertainty, making choices without any guarantees, and discovering how even the smallest creatures can profoundly influence our lives. I entered this experience thinking that I was helping a few abandoned kittens, but it turned out they were the ones teaching me lessons about resilience, responsibility, and the deep connection we forge with the animals that depend on us. If you've ever thought about fostering, rescuing, or simply lending a hand to an animal in need, I encourage you to take that step. You don't need to be an expert. All you really need is a caring heart. If this story resonated with you, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing. The more we raise awareness, the more lives we can save together. You never know, your next unexpected encounter might just change your life too.